It's another fabulous Friday over here, Poddies, and can you believe that we are at the end of August? Like, when did this happen? I have no idea how this year is going so quickly, and I'm kind of not sure that I want it to go any quicker. It feels like only yesterday I'm saying, oh my goodness, can you believe it's August already? Like, we're 8 months through the year. This is exciting and terrifying. Maybe, I know I keep saying this, but maybe it's the countdown to my big birthday. That is happening officially in 22 days. I'm gonna be 30. Wow. I keep saying and I keep shifting between I'm not bothered about being 30, like I'm really excited, and then the other part of me is like, oh my god, I'm gonna be 30. Like, I have to be an actual human, I have to be an adult. Excitingly though, my accountant did actually tell me that he is getting me a gift for my 30th birthday. I'm guessing it's going to be a calculator, if I'm honest. Anyone know any other unusual accountancy gifts? Maybe I'm stereotyping him, but I kind of feel like it's going to be a calculator. Maybe it will be bright, luminous, and pink or something like that, just to make it funky. But I kind of have a feeling that's what it's going to be. It's a really, really great episode that you are tuning into today. I want to not reassure you on that. You tune in every week, so clearly you are a top poddy. But this week, I have somebody who is really exciting on the show. And I'm really excited to have this person on the show. It's so fun for me, and I think sometimes we underestimate like the really cool stuff that we get to do in our businesses. And one of the cool things for me, or one of the coolest things for me, is being able to have conversations, like genuinely interesting and great conversations with great people. And I love it even more when those people are from my community. So today on the podcast, I'm talking to the lovely Mai-Kee Tsang. Now, I am absolutely going to, at some point during this episode, pronounce her name wrong and apologize profusely. That's the guess anyway. But we had this really, really cool conversation about conversion copywriting. And I think that, it's one of those things, often when I'm talking to a guest, we'll get talking about an episode and people will pitch me, they'll send in a great pitch, they'll say, this is kind of what I want to talk about. And often, because when we start the conversation, it is informal, it goes in different directions than I expect. So when Mai-Kee actually pitched to be on the Smart Leader Sell podcast, and she wrote a great pitch, and we actually talk about that and break some of it down in the episode. So spoiler, if you've ever wanted to be on the podcast, maybe listen to that bit. But she came across in a really effervescent way, even on paper. That's quite important for somebody who specializes in using words to make money for a living. The great thing though about this conversation is that it took a slightly different direction than some of our episodes have, in that we dug into some of the practical elements of copywriting and what you can actually be doing to get more conversions. We took a really good look at Mai-Kee's 3-step system for conversion copywriting, and we dug into some really cool topics like brand DNA. And actually, Mai-Kee even, another spoiler, 3 in one intro, can you believe it, actually dug into my parts of my brand DNA and had done it without me even knowing. So it was really, really exciting episode to record, really good fun. And I would really encourage you to take away some of those top tips and start to think about how you can be improving your copy in your business, and also starting to move your business into that brand space. And we talk about that both in this episode with Mai-Kee and in an episode in a couple of weeks' time with Nick Smith, which I'm very, very excited about. So have a little listen to this episode. I would urge you to grab a pen, make it one where you can take notes, because I think you are going to get a lot from it. And I would also just do an end of August check-in with yourself about what you are going to be doing to skyrocket your business in Q4. So often we can get to the end of the summer and we've been, spending the summer with the kids. We've been spending the summer learning things. We've been spending the summer trying to relax desperately after the busy year that we've all had. And we forget that actually going into September, we usually lose around 2 weeks in September, because we start to think, oh, well, I've got to ease back into it. I've got to get the kids into school. I've got to get back on the routine bandwagon, figure things out again. And before we know it, October is coming around the corner. So if you know that you are somebody who struggles to get back in the game, it is now the end of August. Start thinking about what you are going to be doing next week as we move into September, so you can have that best Q4. And if you would like my support, which I would hope that you would, then we are going to be closing the applications for this level of Evolve very, very soon. So if you haven't applied, if you do want to shift your revenue up a gear and achieve results like making £15,000 in the first 2 weeks of joining Evolve, making £15,380 in the first 2 weeks of joining Evolve, or having a massive sold out launch in the first 6 weeks of joining Evolve, then please make sure that you put your application in now. The link for that is in the show notes. Like I say, we will be closing that very, very shortly. It'll be closing towards the end of September. Like I say, if you are somebody who struggles to get back in the game, make sure you apply early, because we are going to be shutting that down, onboarding all of our awesome new Evolvers and getting them set up for their best ever Q4. So enjoy this episode. It seriously was an awesome conversation. There's a lot of laughing. There are a lot of practical and actionable tips that you can take away. And I'd really love to hear your thoughts. So head over onto social and let us know how we did today. See you soon. Poddies, how exciting is this? It has been a while since we have had somebody who specializes in writing awesome copy on the show. And I am really excited to welcome Mai-Kee Tsang. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm ridiculously excited.
I'm so excited about this. And it's funny because I was just saying to Mai-Kee before we hit the record button, Team Jess are over the moon with Mai-Kee. and I think we should talk about this. I think we should talk about your pitch, because it was so just to embarrass you a little bit and kind of get you into the smart leader sell mode. You wrote this great pitch, and typically, we get 30 to 40 pitches a week for the podcast, which is really cool. It makes me feel a little bit like John Lee Dumas. Like every time we get one, I'm like, oh my God, fist pump moment. Like, so cool. People want to be on the show. Sadly, generally they're crap. So the other problem that we have, and as podcasters, you have a podcast, I understand. So, as podcasters, you kind of get to the point where you get a bit disillusioned reading through all the applications. You're like, oh, right, yet another person who has never listened to the podcast, but really wants to be on it apparently, but doesn't know how it works or the style or anything. And so we were so excited when we got your pitch, because your pitch was great. And I'm not gonna read it out, because then everyone will just copy you and be like, well, obviously I'm just gonna do what Mai-Kee did. But what we really, really loved was there were two things that I particularly loved. One was something that Team Jess brought up, that they were like, right, as soon as we emailed Mai-Kee and said, yeah, come on the show, you sent over everything we needed in one email. Like, that is so good. It's just so useful to have in one email. Headshots, bio, like whatever we need. The other thing was your special talent that you put in the PPS of your pitch, which I also love. I love that you have a PPS as well. Like, I was like, good, this is someone I can jam with. Apparently you can imitate the voice of Stitch.
Yes.
From Lilo and Stitch.
Yes,
I would love to hear this. Like, I feel like it's the best way to start.
Oh my God. Okay. Let me just drink some water. But before I do, let me know, what would you like me to say? Because I could say a line from Lilo and Stitch, because he says, I'm so cute and fluffy, right? And yeah, I could say that. But yeah, I feel like I'm a little bit out of practice. But I have to tell you that when I did do this for someone who worked at Paper Chase, which is like a stationery store here in well, you know Jess. She was wearing a Stitch shirt. And then when I did the Stitch imitation, my friend was like, so that deserves like 10% discount, right? And then she's like, oh, definitely. And there was some resemblance, which is fantastic. Okay, oh
my goodness, I love it. So there you go, guys. If you can imitate animated characters, apparently you will also get store discounts. This is a good thing. No, you can say whatever you like. I just want to hear it. I'm fascinated.
Oh God, I feel like I have some big shoes to fill now. Okay, so I'm just going to say I'm so cute and fluffy, just because that is the line from the movie. So one second, let me calm myself down. Okay. I'm so cute, I'm fluffy.
Oh my God. That is amazing. I love that. I think that is brilliant. If you guys are listening and you have kids in the car and they are not now pestering you to be like, we have to watch that film, perhaps they're actually too young, like, but they should be. That is a phenomenal impression, and a great way to start Friday morning. So thank you for that. Welcome to the show.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And I feel like, like before we jumped on this call, like we were already jamming anyway, talking about running and everything. But like, yeah, now I feel really relaxed because when I can bring out my inner love for Disney and Pokemon and anime, all that kind of stuff, I just feel really happy. So yeah, you got me in a great mood.
What a way to wind into the weekend. And we've got a really, really cool show for you today and some good conversations here. And I just want to kind of start it off with, you have a very specific title. And I'm really interested, particularly in one part of it. Okay, so for those of you poddies who don't know Mai-Kee yet, her official title is Launch Strategist and Conversion Copywriter. Now, Conversion Copywriter, talk to me about this, because this appeals to my love for alliteration, but also the tangible result and so many things. So tell us how you ended up as a conversion copywriter.
Oh my goodness. Are you sure you want to listen to this? This story
Yes,
is long.
100%.
Okay, I'm gonna try to skip over some seemingly irrelevant parts. I feel like I need to start from the beginning of childhood. And don't worry, it's not gonna be that long. But but you know when you're a kid and then people ask you, oh, what do you want to be when you're older? I never had an answer. And all my friends were like, oh, I want to be a supermodel, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a police officer. I had nothing. And I was like, something's wrong with me. When it came to secondary school, my friends kept saying the same thing, that I had a real knack for listening to people and giving advice. And I thought, I wonder if there's a profession in this. And it just so happens that 2 of my older cousins went into psychology for university. And so they just wound up teaching me some stuff from their textbooks. So good old Freud and Bowlby and everyone. And then, yeah, it came to a point where like, yeah, I want to go to uni and do psychology as well to become a counselor. And that dream was very short-lived because I kid you not, Jess, like day 1 of university, every fiber of my being was telling me, this isn't for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it crushed me because here in the UK, like you'll know that at a certain point, the fees tripled, right? To enter university. So I was the final year when it was still 3K a year. And then,
wow.
And then my partner like went the next year and had triple the fees. So I thought, okay, now I really need to take advantage of this because I'm very lucky that I got into my first choice and everything like that. But, that love for psychology really diminished over time for me because it's just the way that it was taught, I think. And how it saw human beings almost like subjects of an experiment as opposed to human beings that need to be, encouraged and to help to express their individual potential. So that's why like it really veered me away. And then through some personal circumstances, I actually wound up really wanting to go through some like self-improvement. Let's just say. And I actually found coaching along the way. And I was like, oh, what's this? And then it was everything I wanted it to be. It was everything I actually wanted to be. So I actually started with coaching, not copywriting. Yeah. And so actually the coaching, to be honest, it really does help with the copy. But this is how I managed to get into it. So much like many coaches who have just gotten their certification, they're fantastic at the craft, but very, very unskilled in marketing and selling. They just want to coach, but they don't want to market and sell themselves, right? Yeah, that was me. And then, so, around the time I was looking for business mentors, and there was one where I won a challenge. It was a 7-day challenge to overcome your fears. And we can dig into that later if you'd like to. But basically, I won that challenge. And it was out of 10,000 people who were entering this, and I won. And the prize was 1 year's mentorship with the leader, who was actually an influencer. And it was his first year in business. And I actually wound up, like, the first 4 months of this mentorship, it was a mentorship. But then it actually turned into an internship because I wound up working with him. I was like, oh, I really love what you're doing. And because my coaching services could use a platform, and like I just dove straight in. And I was a chameleon working with this guy. Like I did everything under the sun. I did sales, I did community management, I emceed on webinars, I did customer service, I trained a team, everything. And lo and behold, one of those skills was copywriting. And I didn't know what it was, to be fair, like at the time. He just asked me to write an email, like a promotional email for his webinar that was coming out. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then it performed really well. And he was like, try this one. and this one, and this one. So it just kept going on. And he said to me, Mai-Kee, I feel that you're not an entrepreneur, to work for someone else. I really feel like you're an entrepreneur. And, I feel that if you really went all in, you would be able to be very successful being a copywriter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, like he was a true mentor in every sense of the word, because while he, of course, like he wanted me to still work with him, but he didn't want to prevent me from reaching my full potential, which I absolutely love about him. And yeah, so around like the 1 year mark, when the original mentorship was over, we just had that discussion, and I just couldn't silence that need in my body that was saying like, yeah, you need to like venture out on your own. You originally came here to kind of like work under someone's wing, but you're ready to fly, sort of thing, as cheesy as that sounds. But, but yeah, that's how I wound up as a copywriter. And I did wind up specializing in launching, because working with him, I actually, again, unknowingly, I worked on 13 launches in 12 months. And that's a lot of launching.
That really is a lot of launching.
They were all live as well. They weren't evergreen. So yeah, I don't think many people have that same experience as I do, actually having that in the trench experience, especially at such an accelerated amount of time as well. So yeah, that's how I wound up being a copywriter. But so you were interested in why conversion, right? Yeah, so that was my story. I hope that wasn't too long-winded for you.
No, it's perfect.
But yeah, so the way that I see it, basically every copywriter would say something different, but just to explain it to people who may not be too familiar with the copywriting world, I just break it down into two schools of thought. There is content copywriters and conversion copywriter. And it really depends on which side of the funnel that they are. Well, not side, but I guess top or bottom of the funnel. So bottom of the funnel is when, you know, that's when they buy something. That's when your leads buy something. So it's like your sales page. That's pretty much conversion, right? But then at the top of the funnel is content. And so that's what brings them in. That's what, you know, gets people interested into your brand and, you know, becoming aware of your products and services. And so, you know, content and conversion, they do go hand in hand. It's just different ends of the funnel, really. And I think for myself, it was easier to see the results of my writing because you can just see it plain as day, you know, looking at the numbers. How many sales did we get for the launch? How many webinar registrations did we get? How many open rates, click-through rates through the emails? You know, it's a lot easier for me. And because I can be quite a numbers person, sometimes I just like seeing things like just staring at me blank in the face. But there are other times when I'm a lot more, what's the word? It's just kind of like, yeah, I'm a lot more open to other things, but I prefer it to be more objective when it comes to the results that I bring to a client.
I really like that. And I think it's so interesting. So one of the things, and, you know, again, one of the things that I really liked when you applied was that you explained that you had actually listened to the show and that you're a fairly avid poddy, which is great. You know, it's one of the things I really love about the podcasting community is that everybody's very loyal. But I think, you know, the important thing is here that we all know how much I talk about having experience with what you're selling and actually going out and, you know, selling something that you are good at as opposed to something that you know nothing about but think will make you more money. And so what I love about your journey is that actually you've been on the journey, you did it, you practiced it, you honed that skill. You know, yeah, okay, fine. Like it took somebody else to point out to you, you are phenomenal at this, go take it, go fly with it. And actually you know, in terms of selling conversions and conversion copywriting, you've done that. You've done the journey and now you're converting for yourself. And I really like that on both levels. It's just a very cool way to start.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, honestly, this journey it's not been straightforward at all. So when people think that life is so linear, because my sister's just come out of uni and like she thinks like she's following the traditional path, understandably. But I can't help but say like, yeah, girl, like life ain't linear. So, you know, you'll find it because, you know, she's putting so much pressure on herself. But yeah, I do believe that is so important because I believe authority, it really comes down to like one of two things or both. And one of them is that you can actually get results for your clients. You know, there's that. And second of all is when you actually get results for yourself. So it's kind of, you know, we know so many entrepreneurs, right, who they're so good at what they do for other people, but not for themselves. And I just really believe in walking your talk. So just getting in there, getting in the trenches and getting your hands dirty a little bit, you know, and just getting scrappy with it and just being willing to revisit the fundamentals all the time, because that's where all of the foundations are built. So that's my belief.
I really like that. That's so exciting. And I think, it's copywriting is one of these areas that actually really intrigues me because I love to write my own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I could ever write for anybody else. And maybe that's a personality thing. I think it takes a very specific type of person to be able to put themselves not only in the shoes of the customer or the prospective customer, but also into the personality of the person that you're actually writing the copy for. And I think that's something that I would find really challenging. And as I'm saying this, I realize that I must just not be empathetic enough. I'm a weird sociopath that just does not see anybody else's opinions. But, how do you manage that? Because it must be, it must be quite a challenge to take on different clients and have to write on different styles and on different topics. And how do you do that? How does your brain make that happen? Because it seems to be like some kind of magical process.
Well, it can be. I think there are just some things that will put you at an advantage, but there's definitely ways to learn. I mean, what was a real advantage for me is because, when I said that, my friends at a very early age, they said that, I really was able to listen. And that's a huge thing. I'm not saying that you're not a good listener, by the way. None of this is like a backlash to you. But yeah, when it came to first writing for people, I think because for my first client, I was literally so integrated into his business that it was easy for me because I heard him speak all the time. We talked every day. At one point, he was like, I think I talk to you more than I talk to my fiance, who I live with. And I was like, well, this is what happens when you're running a business. But I was so integrated into his business. So that's why it was quite easy for me at first. But when I started taking on different clients, that was a bit challenging at first because if you really think about it, a copywriter, they need to please the client as well as still get the result for who the client is trying to reach. So it's kind of like we have a double barrier to get through because even if the client doesn't like it, it doesn't mean that their clients won't appreciate it and, won't convert from it or something. So it is a bit difficult. So that's why it's always so important for copywriters to remind their clients that, ultimately this copy is going out for them. But we still want it to be an accurate representation. And so that's why for all of my clients, I create a brand DNA guide. And it's something that allows any team member. So for example, because you have a team, right, Jess? I mean, having a brand DNA guide, you'll be able to have your messaging very consistent. So where I would start with you. And actually, I did something before we jumped on this call, I didn't actually expect to do this, but I'm going to show you. Basically, something that I do, one of the first things that I do is to try and identify the voice of my client. So if you're my client, for example, I'd want to actually see the current copy that you have. So would you say that the copy on your website is a fairly accurate representation of who you are? Like you're pretty happy with it?
Yeah, I'd say it's all right. Look, everybody knows. I think we're all very open on the show. Everyone knows my website is complete crap. Right now, but the lovely James is working behind the scenes. He's making big things happen. It's just that I am being slow on copy.
Oh gosh, writing for yourself, that's just another story.
If it's not sales copy, I'm not writing it. That's how it goes.
Fair enough. But yeah, so just for fun, I actually ran your copy through a tool that I use. It's a tone analyzer. And so I took the copy from the How Can I Help You page. So on your website, we have Start Here and What I Do, right? And so I ran your copy through a tone analyzer just to see what kind of emotions, the core emotions are actually most present in your copy. And would you like to know what they are?
Oh, yes. And this is so exciting. I'm very excited about this.
Okay, so the first one, which I think you'll be super happy about, is joy. So your copy is very joyful. So when people read your copy, they feel like, that enjoyment, satisfaction and pleasure. There's a sense of well-being to your copy, basically.
Look at that, guys. See, I'm looking after you all. I'm trying to make you happy.
I think it definitely reflects on the way that, we're chatting right now. I love that you laugh a lot because I do the same. Okay. And second core emotion is confidence. So you're clearly confident in what you do and use a lot of confident language. So actually, if I drill into the specifics, so let me just find a phrase. Okay. So there's a phrase on that page that says, I'm on a mission to teach all entrepreneurs the sales skills they need to create a successful, sustainable business. There's no shred of doubt in that whatsoever. And so your copy is actually very confident. And the last one, I don't want you to take this the wrong way. Okay.
This is the bit where it's like sarcasm or psychopathic tendencies.
No. It doesn't go that deep, Jess. But actually, when I look through the copy that that points out the sadness, I actually don't agree with this. But so the sadness is like indicating a feeling of loss and disadvantage. But I think it actually makes sense because you're painting a picture of what life is like without you. You know what I mean? So actually, it's just this phrase, what I want for you. So I don't think that's a very accurate representation, but I totally understand where it comes from. And I do agree from the fact that naturally as business owners, we do have to kind of sell the alternative reality. What happens if people don't work with us? This is what they could have. But because you're coming in all joyful and confident with what you can do, then you're able to eradicate that. So yeah, I just wanted to let you know. I thought it's super fun just to like run your copy through some tones.
I like that. That's so exciting. That's really, really cool. And is that part of your copywriting process normally? You look how people work, and that's how you kind of get into the kind of mind of your client when you're writing? Because that's a really, really cool way to work. I think it's always so interesting for me to see how other people operate with their processes, because so many people don't have a process. One of the things that we see so often in the online space is that people just kind of go, oh yeah, well, I'm a sales coach, and because I've made one sale online, or I'm a business coach, but I've never had a business before, but I guess it can't be that difficult to set up. So I really love it when people have a clear process, because the thing about processes, guys, is that it gets your clients results. If you have a process that you can walk people through, even though every client is different, the process will help you identify the differences so you can support them in the best way. And I really love this. I think that's such a smart way of doing it.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I think because something that I noticed, especially in the copywriting space, is that with our clients, sometimes they just want something straight away. And what they don't realize is that copywriting is actually one of the last things we do. Everything beforehand is actually research. And it's a very fine dance, very fine balance, if you will, between understanding their customer and understanding themselves. I mean, actually, my signature framework, it does apply to launching, but it also applies to any copywriting project I take on. And the first phase is H2H touch, because a lot of people want to launch something and they don't have the research. They haven't validated their idea with their audience. They may not even have a big enough audience to launch to. And so, they just want to launch because they want to put their thing out there. But actually, that's one of the last priorities. The first thing is H2H touch, which is what I like to call it. And it's the human-to-human marketing. It's actually getting out there and actually getting on calls with your clients. Like I do that for my clients anyway. But, for people who want to kind of do a DIY launch, that is the first place to start. You have to actually get on calls with people and actually ask them like what they're struggling with, and what solution would they like. And so that's the first phase. And then the second phase is brand DNA. So I want a balance between what my clients want and what their clients want, if that makes sense. It's a fine balance between the two, because if that's slightly off balance, then what can happen if you're too into the research and listening to your voice of customer data, then you lose your voice as a business owner. And that's when you start sounding like everyone else. And when you do, and if you put too much on emphasis on what you want to say, then you can lose touch with who you're actually trying to help. So it's actually fine tuning that, but I always start with the research with the customer first, just so that they have a viable audience to launch to, and they validated their idea already, just so it helps to prevent launch flop as much as possible. And then we can focus on the signature creation. So that is my 3-step process for any copywriting project I do.
Right, I like this. Let's talk about this process, because I think like I say, processes are important. And I think, especially when you can cater the process to the client. So when we dig into this 3-step process, like what's step 1 for you?
H2H touch, for sure. So it's something that I learned from my mentor, actually, moving away from B2C and B2B, which is how we traditionally see business, and just realizing that at the end of the day, regardless of what business you're in, you're serving human beings. And it's remembering that they're not just like, there's a human behind every like, every comment, every email, everything. Every listener is actually a human being. And so it's actually realizing that and kind of like getting off our what do they say, soapboxes? Or
well, this is it, isn't it? Because I do think, and I'm very guilty of this, like I've been known to have a good old rant and love it. I'm completely unapologetic about that. But I think one of the things that I first learned in the sales world, my director used to scream at us all the time, which I feel is ironic, was that people buy from people. And one of the things that we used to worry about all the time in sales businesses was that people would leave. And we would spend an awful lot of time trying to retain staff. It's one of the reasons that sales businesses are actually, despite being a really high pressure environment, they are one of the most fun places to work. Because all of the bosses understand that if somebody leaves and they go to a competitor, because you want your best salespeople to be people who other people want to buy from, it's quite likely that a percentage of your clients are going to walk away too. And that's, that's a problem. So I really like this human to human piece. So we've got that. Then what's step 2?
Step 2, that's when it's brand DNA. So that's when I focus on them. So if we were to sit down on the call, we'd go way deeper than this tone analyzer. I'd actually break down like your sentence structures. And for example, you tend to have fairly longer sentences, which means that you have a lot of commas in there. So for example, if I were to try and write in your place, I would have to understand all of that. And it goes deeper into your value system. It goes into your stories, your experiences. What makes you uniquely credible, to actually do this? I mean, I know that you have a ton of experience like beforehand. So we'd actually dig into that story so that people actually understand your ethos, because this is something that I love telling my clients, that there are 3 pillars of persuasion. And I'm not talking about Cialdini stuff. I'm actually going like way back to ancient Greece.
Everyone loves ancient Greece, by the way. Just going to throw that out there. Like ancient Greece did us a lot of favors, including, good wine making abilities and, some good books. Good books.
Definitely. And like I like Greece is on my bucket list, but I mean, I would love to experience this love of Greece. But so what I think about is ethos, pathos, and logos. And I know that there are so many different ways to say that. There's like pathos and logos, and I don't like saying it like that. It's kind of like the whole niche thing.
Oh yeah.
But in my case, it's ethos, pathos, and logos. And this is something that I want to remind my clients, the fact that because some of them worry about people copying their stuff, right? And like people can copy the logic as well as the emotion. Like, that's what logos and pathos is about. Logos is having all the facts and the figures, and pathos is all about, having that emotional connection. But actually what most people miss out is ethos. Like, what makes you uniquely credible? What is your character about? And that's what makes the trifecta. But and the thing is, when like we've seen people out there, Jess, right, when they just watch one like training and suddenly they're an expert in it and they teach it, right? But what makes them credible to do that? Just because they may know it logically, something like we feel it intuitively, something is off. Like, how did you suddenly become an expert in social media marketing? Like, you watched a masterclass, so what? But when you actually have that background story, that history, and you've got the accreditation, no, that's not the word, the qualifications, like you have the qualifications, like, and the experience, like that is what brings it all together. And so that is something that I help my clients to identify their ethos, like what actually makes them uniquely credible for this. And so we dig into their story, their values, all of that jazz, and then it really helps to round off what they're all about. And also when I do that, I actually have a document. I create a brand guide for them, a brand DNA guide. And so it just helps to kind of go back to that. And especially when you onboard new team members, instead of you walking them through personally what your company is about, you actually would just send them this DNA guide, and it's got like all of your key content pieces, so they understand your belief systems, they understand how you speak, they understand how you write. And it just really helps everybody, because sometimes for a launch, like I can actually cover most aspects of a launch. The only part that I would actually outsource to my own team would be, Facebook ads, management, and writing the ads. Like, because I'm definitely better at long form, so sales pages, hello. But but when it comes to Facebook ads, I would outsource that to part of my team. But if you have so many people working on the launch and they're working on different pieces, if there's any part that just feels misaligned, your prospects will feel it, and they're like, it can kind of feel like a bait and switch, which is not what you want them to feel, especially when they're traveling down this funnel, and at the end you do want to convert them, right? But if they don't have that messaging in place and it's not all aligned all the way through, it can affect the sales. So
that's really interesting, isn't it? And I think if we just take that back to ancient Greece there for a second, because I do love a bit of ancient Greece. In fact, I think I talked about this on the podcast maybe 6 or 7 months ago, how one of my friends was like, Jess, do you want to do a fun Saturday afternoon activity? And I was like, yeah, sure, what is it? And they were like, yeah, we're going to go to a critical reading of the Odyssey by Homer.
Okay.
my Saturday afternoon listening to a bunch of very, very intelligent Oxford and Cambridge professors talking about the Odyssey, and it was just great. And I had the best time. And it's, you know, my secret geek thing is that I just love that kind of stuff. So let's take it back to, you know, ethos, pathos, logos for you, because, and I'm going to say it like you, because I'm one of those who's like, I say ethos, but I'm like, oh yeah, pathos, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important, you know, and I think it's so interesting that you describe it as being brand DNA. Because again, I think, you know, and this, again, guilty pleasure of mine this week, I'm batch recording episodes, and it's really fun for me. But one of the guests that we have coming up in a future episode, Nick Smith, she said in her recording that brands and businesses are inherently different, and people should, you know, as their business grows, actually what they want to be creating is a brand. That's what's going to bring them the long-term sustainable business. And so I really like that that's where you started with that brand DNA. It's not about, you know, this is just a business. This is just you making quick money on the internet and hoping that it kind of continues to work out. Like, this is a system. This is, you know, actually digging into what matters for that person. Because the other thing is that over time, you know, not everybody wants to keep the business that they currently have. You know, I know that when I get to 65, I'm probably not going to want to be a sales coach anymore. I'm probably going to want to be sat on a beach, you know, just chilling out, maybe, you know, with a dog's home or something, and a lot of wine. That's what I see in my future. Yeah, exactly. And at some point, you know, your business does have to change. And, you know, for some people, that looks like, okay, well, we just shut it down, right? The business has done its job. It's made the money. Cool. Bye. And for other people, it means building a business to sell, you know, and I think we don't often think about that, because we don't think about the long term in the online space. We think about what's going to happen in the next month or the next 3 months or 6 months.
Instant gratification.
And that's the thing, right? We're looking for that instant gratification, and we do it with every launch. We do it with every single campaign. We want something and we want it now. You know, even with social media posts, everyone's like, react to me right now. Facebook is telling us if you don't react to my post within 2 minutes, it becomes redundant. And so I love that, you know, that's what you've taken it forward to. It's that idea of that longevity, you know, looking and digging into values that are going to last throughout the lifetime of your business, you know, and potentially shift a little bit over time, but really your core values don't change that much as a person. And so actually, if you build your business and you think, yes, I want to build it to sell, this brand DNA, this inherent you, and these things like sentence structure and things like that, those can all be sold. Those can be a long-term piece that if somebody else wants to buy your business, just because you aren't necessarily doing it anymore, just because you're not the face, it means that it can continue. It can continue to serve the same customer group and the same audience for years to come. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, 100%. I like what you said, that it's all about the longevity of it. And because, you know, at the end of the day, the brand is the experience and how people feel. And because people will always forget, you know, what we say and what we do, but they don't forget how we make them feel. Like if you had a terrible experience with, like, I recently had a terrible experience at an airport. Like, I got stranded for 20 hours at an airport overseas. And, you know, at the time, I did not have a great experience, but they bent over backwards to ensure that I was actually okay as a customer. And I was like, okay, I quite like this. And again, they made me feel heard, and they made me feel like I mattered. And so I'm going to remember that. So Delta, I remember you. Shout out to Delta Airlines.
We love Delta Airlines. Yeah. But it's so funny. And again, because we see it so often now, because the world is so reactive, it's really important to handle those things well. You know, if we look at social media, I know that when Sam and I went on holiday over Christmas, we went to Copenhagen. It was amazing. I'd fully recommend that everybody goes to Copenhagen at least once in their life and visits War Pigs, because just amazing food. But we were coming back on the day of the drone strikes in Gatwick. So we woke up to a text from EasyJet saying, we're really sorry. We know that you're not supposed to be flying out for another 12 hours, but we're going to tell you your flight is going to be cancelled. And all other airlines were still saying, oh no, just come to the airport. Like, it's all good. We'll probably get you out in a couple of hours or so. EasyJet were like, nah, we cannot see this moving forward. We're going to cancel your flight. here's your refund.
Oh.
Go and get a different flight with somebody who goes to Heathrow. So we were able to get home. I mean, admittedly, it was still a crappy journey, but we were able to get home on the day that we'd managed because of the kind of customer service and the ethos of their brand and things like that. The interesting thing was that when we went on social media, because none of us are, or neither of us, are particularly active on social media. We don't necessarily post on Facebook all the time. And Sam actually, I think, has deactivated his Facebook account now. I'm like, yeah, I don't even think he has one anymore. But when we were out there, I say I don't think, obviously I know this. I'm like, he told me about it. It's me being a bad girlfriend. I'm like, yeah, he told me about it, but maybe it didn't happen, but it definitely did. He's not on Facebook anymore. But when we went on social media, when we got home, or when we eventually got back to Gatwick to pick up the car, we saw so many people who were blasting their airlines, who were blasting other airlines, who were blasting local hotels for the, prices going up and things. And it really was that they were blasting these companies, not because, they were in a bad situation, the situation doesn't help, but because the companies were going against their ethos, were going against the values that they had set out. Companies that were saying, our customers are the most important thing to us, who had then increased their prices by over 557%. Yes. And yes, I did tweet about that because as a sales coach, I was like, that is wow, that's deep.
That's crazy.
But because they'd gone against their ethos, that was the problem that their clients were having. That was the problem their customers were facing, and that's why they were getting such negative feedback. That's so important. So what's step 3? Now I'm like, we have to know what step 3 is.
All right. Well, step 3, that's actually when we create. So because a lot of people create first, and it's kind of like it's the mentality, I'll build it and they will come. No. Not in this day and age, my love. But yeah, so that's actually when we do refine what their actual offer is, and we focus on that. So only from there are they able to create, because now they know what they're about, how they want to say it, how they want to come across, and they know exactly what their customers want. Because they've actually spoken to them, they've done the research, or rather I help them do the research. But yeah, that's when it comes to signature creation, because all of those together, I want you to imagine, like, this is actually my diagram that I do have on my website. So think of a trifecta, so like 3 circles. It's kind of like a 3-circle Venn diagram, and they're in, I wish I could describe this better. I wish people could see this.
We'll put the link in the show notes. You can go in there.
Sure. But yeah, so just imagine 3 circles overlapping each other. And so H2H Touch and Brand DNA, they're both at the top. And actually, this was a great piece of feedback that I got from one of my accountability partners. And he said, hey, if you kind of like, because it wasn't originally like that, it was like 1 circle at the top and 2 at the bottom. And he said, okay, when you look at that, you normally think clockwise. And normally the first thing you see at the top is the most important. And I was like, but I want to balance the whole Brand DNA and H2H Touch thing. So that's why both of them are actually on the top. And when they overlap, the message in between there is resonance. Like, you resonate with your customers and they resonate with you for a reason, right? And then below that is signature creation. The overlap between H2H Touch and signature creation, that is strategy, because you're actually creating something strategically, because you actually know what your customers want, instead of, putting it out there into the ether, hoping someone's going to bite.
Yeah.
And then the overlap between Brand DNA and the signature creation is conversion, because, people are going to come to you for a reason. It's because they understand your ethos. They understand what your brand is all about. And, your creation actually hits all the points for them. And because we've seen, people who go to different competitors. I mean, take Pat Flynn and Johnny Dumas, for example. Like, they both had podcasts, and yourself actually. Like, you all have podcasting. You all have podcasting courses. But there are some people who are gonna love you because you are you, right? And there are some people who are gonna go to the others. But there's competition all around us. But that's not something to fear, because if this is something that I like to call the rooftop reminder. And where it comes from is that I managed an event a couple of years back, and I was there was a millionaire techpreneur who was teaching everyone in the room how to start a tech business. And at one point, there was one person in the audience who said, "But Vince, what if somebody else has my idea?" And he said, "Okay, if I were to start a business and I wanted to replace all the rooftops in the world with solar panels, do you think I'd be able to do it? Like, reach all the rooftops?" And we're like, "Well, no." And he's like, "Exactly. There are so many rooftops in the world. And if there are competitors or like people who actually have the same mission, that's great. So we can cover them together And so, you know, if your mission is truly because you want to help people with what you're able to help them with, then that's what matters most, as opposed to like, oh, who comes under my umbrella, who comes under their umbrella. There's room for everyone. There truly is. And so that's what I want to like remind everybody who's listening right now. If you feel at any point that there is a competitor, there is a competitor out there for you. But, you know, that's fine, because as long as you understand, like, just look at your lane, you know, just put those blinders on and understand what you're all about, what your mission is. And if there are competitors, that means that you have people who are creating that same mission as you. You can collaborate even, you know, to expand your mission even further. So that's fantastic, actually.
I really like that you've raised this point, and I think it's really important to nail it down. Like, you know, this is a question that I get a lot is, well, you know, how can I sell something, or how can I sell something that's more expensive when this person or that person is selling it cheaper? The reality is that, unfortunately, if you develop a truly blue ocean idea in 2019 or onwards, you know, 2020, 2021, whenever in the future, likely it won't work and it won't sell. Now, that might be a really negative way to look at it. It might feel like, oh my God, Jess, what are you saying? But the reality is humans have been on this planet exchanging some form of currency for a number of thousands of years. Okay. And so the thing about blue ocean is that everybody looks for it. They're like, great, what can I find that's blue ocean? What can I completely own and do myself so I have no competition? And that would be great. But without competition, you don't learn from anybody else's mistakes.
Exactly.
You don't look at it and go, okay, well, that company did that really wrong, so I'm not going to do that. Or, oh, that company's customer service is really poor, so I'm going to make mine really good. And so when we start to look at how we then sell those things, when we're not blue ocean, so when we start to look at how we sell those things and we're looking at our competitors, so many business owners are just starting with price. Oh, okay, well, they charge £10 for this, so I should charge £10 for that, or less, because I am newer. And the reality is that actually when we are consumers, we're making comparisons on so many different levels. You know, we've talked about this throughout the episode. You know, we've talked about the experience with airlines, we've talked about the experience with different, you know, social media companies, launches, etc. Your customers are going to be looking at you and making the comparisons with you that you are for other people. So if you are somebody who really likes good customer service, which I am, you know, and it's one of those things that I just notice because I've been in sales for so long. I love good customer service. Yeah. I really love it. If there's a problem and somebody handles it and they, you know, they're transparent and they're honest and they're apologetic, I'm like all over this. I love it. If a company has bad customer service, I never shop there again.
Yeah, same.
And that's the reality. And it might be that their price is better. It might be that it's more convenient for me. But my values as a person is, well, I really prioritize honesty. I really prioritize people trying to go out of their way to help. And that's why my team is set up in the same way. And it's actually why we blacklist customers who are rude to my team. Because if you are rude to my team, it means that you also don't provide great customer service. So, you know, we put you on a little list and you can't buy any of our stuff.
Wow, that book.
Yeah, I know. I might do an episode about that one day. The power of Thrivecart, which is what we use, you know, and you can do that. And we put people's email addresses on there and we're like, okay, well, you know, if you can't be polite to people, if they're trying to help you solve a problem or they're trying to do their best and you are somebody that emails in, and we do get them, unfortunately, sometimes for people who, particularly people who've forgotten passwords, we get that a lot, who, you know, understandably are frustrated. But when it is human error, or when it's an error that has been made by the customer and, you know, we've got a team who are trying to sort it, actually, no, we don't want you to buy anything else from us. You know, not least because we know we'll have to reset your password 50,000 times, but also because it shows that actually when you come up against an obstacle and you are in that position, you choose to be aggressive and rude and try and take somebody else's day down. And that's not the kind of client we want to work with. And it's the same when we're talking about brands. It's the same when we're talking about businesses. You know, it's you are being compared to your competitors. And if you have competitors, that's a good thing because it shows other people are making money in your industry. So if they can, why can't you?
And, you know, like I totally understand the concept of a blue ocean versus a red ocean with all the sharks and stuff. But let's be honest, all the oceans in the world, they are connected. It's just, I mean, like all water is actually connected. So there's no singular ocean. you know, it's all connected. And that's something, when you think about it, it's just a concentration of, you know, the population within certain ocean. That's what's going to matter. But because the thing is with blue oceans, I think it, you know, honestly, I'm not bashing the idea at all. But when I think about the fact that there are some people who work so hard trying to come up with a completely original idea, and then someone will try and rip it off. It's natural, you know, it's a part of business. But when people actually focus on just understanding, like for example, I have this framework of mine, I call it the black belt ethos, because I do Japanese jiu-jitsu myself, and ethos is something that I truly believe in. And black belt, it comes, the reason why I chose that to be my theme, I guess, of this framework is because, you know, what a black belt symbolizes is infinite pursuit of excellence. And I absolutely adore that. And it's kind of like, when you get a black belt in martial arts, it's not just one rank, like there's like 10 ranks. It's different for each one. But for jiu-jitsu anyway, it can take like 60 years to get the top rank. And what I mean, like, that's incredible, that amount of resilience and that persistence. And it is infinite pursuit of excellence. And that's the kind of person that I want to attract as a client of mine, someone who really values that. And the thing is, no one can take that from me, because my story is in there, you know, with actually wanting to do jiu-jitsu. Because the personal thing that I said earlier on in this episode, you know, in uni, I said personal circumstances. You know, I was in an abusive relationship, and it really crushed me, and it literally put me at rock bottom. And my partner now really encourages me to take care of myself and just to really empower myself, because there are going to be times when my partner's not going to be there, unfortunately, because, you know, we can't be with our partners all the time, right? And so that's why, like, I do Japanese jiu-jitsu, because it's empowering for me, and it really feeds into my story about, you know, courage and finding yourself, owning your voice, because that's what my own podcast is all about. And so that is so me. And when I tell people it, they're like, wow, we can feel your stories in there. But the thing is, the process is actually the same for all copywriters. It's research, understanding your client, and then, you know, you actually write the copy. But I just put my own spin on it. And that's what it's all about. It's not about coming up with a completely original idea, because original ideas are actually extremely rare to come by. But it's actually a matter of repurposing, you know, what's already there, instead of just simply regurgitating information, because that's where a lot of people just start and stop. They just start regurgitating information. So the example that we said earlier, like when someone would just watch a training and suddenly they're an expert, they're just regurgitating. But if they actually were to, like, you know, take learnings from that, add on their own experience, add on their own spin, add on their own angle, then it can kind of feel like something new, because you can hear the same message over and over again, but it will just land with a different person when they say it in their particular way. And that's what we should focus on, is actually understanding what makes us uniquely us, because then we can, you know, create these processes, refine them, repurpose them, and just really put our stamp on it, our DNA.
I really love that.
That's what really makes the difference, I think.
Thank you so much for today. Honestly, this has been epic, and there has been a ton of gold. Tons and tons of gold in this episode. So I'm really, really excited for you guys to let us know how we got on today. Obviously, you can hit us up on social media and tell us what your key takeaway was from this episode. I'm really excited to hear those. So where can people find you if they're like, right, I need more Mai-Kee in my life? Where does that happen?
Well, I think the singular link that would be best would be maikeestang.com, because that will have everything. It will have my own podcast. If you're curious, it's called the Quiet Rebels podcast, all about owning your voice, owning your worth, owning your message in both life and business. And I'm super, super proud of that. And yeah, so that is my podcast. And the best social media platform you find me on is Instagram. So it's Mai-Kee Tsang as well, but literally everything's on the website, and I'll be sure to send Team Jess the link so you guys can find me if you'd like to ethically stalk me.
I love it. Ethically stalking. What a way. What a phrase. So there you go, guys. It's been an awesome episode today. I know that you will agree. If you do want more Mai-Kee in your life, make sure you head over to maikeestang.com. We will have that link in the show notes for you, so you can head over there and get everything that you need. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Genuinely, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, you're so welcome. And guys, Like I say, I will catch you for another episode on Monday. It's going to be awesome. So make sure you are there and we can celebrate the end of the summer. I'm so excited. Not. I will see you on Monday for that as we wind down into autumn and into the season of red leaves and, crunchy leaves underfoot and wellies and all of the good stuff. I'll catch you Monday.